Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Yumi Maknesh. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Historian calls for UK accountability on reparations. Guayagayari man placed on bond for camouflage possession. $7 million allocated for repairs at Arangwe's North Secondary. Opposition pledges helpline for hospital patients. Now for the details. Historian Dr. Rita Pemberton insists that the fight for reparations will continue until a proper resolution is reached. This comes after the British government stated that reparations would not be on the agenda at the ongoing Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa. Pemberton criticized the UK for avoiding responsibility for its colonial past and said evasion won't end the struggle. She was responding to comments from Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, who recently acknowledged his family's connection to the slave trade in Jamaica and Tobago. Dr. Claudius Fergus, chairman of the TT National Reparations Committee, also rejected the UK's stance, aligning with CARICOM's intent to address reparations forcefully at Chogam. A 31-year-old Guayagayari man, Colonel Christopher Matthews, has been placed on a $75,000 bond after pleading guilty to possessing camouflage clothing, which is illegal under the Customs Act. Matthews appeared before the Mayaro magistrates on October 22nd and admitted to owning a camouflage t-shirt and 2 pairs of pants. His lawyer explained that Matthews bought the items years ago for parties. He has no prior convictions. Matthews was arrested during a police search for weapons and ammunition on October 21st. He must maintain good behavior for 2 years or face further sentencing. Education Minister Dr. Nyan Gatsby-Dolly announced that $7 million has been allocated for urgent repairs at Arangwe's North Secondary School. The school has been plagued by health and safety issues, leading 35 of its 45 teachers to refuse to work. Problems include malfunctioning AC units, leaking roofs, unusable classrooms, and a closed cafeteria due to a leaking sewer. The Occupational Safety and Health Agency has also issued prohibition notices for parts of the school. Repairs set to begin soon will address electrical, plumbing, AC units, and roof leaks. Teachers will continue to occupy the library, their designated safe space, until conditions improve. Opposition Senator Dr. Tim Gopi Singh has promised that a future UNC government will establish a helpline to assist frustrated hospital patients. Speaking during the Senate budget debate on October 22nd, Gopi Singh criticized the current state of healthcare, claiming that patients are waiting months or even years for medical assistance. He cited examples of patients waiting for surgeries, clinic appointments, and proper medication, despite the government spending $63 billion on health over the past 9 years. Gopi Singh also accused the government of neglecting healthcare professionals and failing to address issues highlighted in the C. Mungle report on the COVID pandemic. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi Maknish. Thanks for watching.
Come travel with us as we explore Diwali across the globe. Diwali is celebrated in many countries worldwide, but do you know the traditions and practices of each nation? From Guyana to Australia, WESN presents Diwali Passport,
October 9th to October 30th, with replays on October 31st.
It's Diwali Passport, a WESN exclusive.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome back to Dollars and Cents. I'm Darren Jacobs, a senior financial advisor, and I'm here to guide you through smart financial decisions that can protect your wealth and boost your bottom line. Now, on today's episode, I'll be talking about wills, trusts, beneficiaries, and life insurance and how they all tie in together. So, I'd like to start with understanding life insurance and what is life insurance, because I've realized throughout my time there has been a lot of misinterpretations or misunderstandings of what life insurance is and how it works and how it can actually benefit you. So the definition of life insurance, it's a contract between an individual and an insurance company. The policyholder pays regular premiums, and in return, the insurance company agrees to pay a lump sum of money, which is a death benefit, to a designated beneficiary upon the policyholder's death. Now, the issue that I've realized with a lot of people when it comes to understanding insurance is that they think, a lot of people have the opinion that life insurance is a scam because it's as a result of not understanding how it works. And predominantly with a lot of communities or certain socioeconomic communities, the information about life insurance and how it benefits people is not really widely talked about, because let's be honest, which person going and say their parent passed away and left $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million for them? Very few people will tell you about that, and very few people would explain to you how this actually works. So let's paint a scenario here, and in this way you can have a simple understanding of what it is and how it could actually benefit you. Let's say you are a married person, you're a husband and wife, and you have 2 children, and you have a mortgage. Now, in most cases, the income from both parties balance the standard of living for the household. So they would pay the mortgage, the transport, the education, the day-to-day living expenses. And in most situations, if one person's salary is taken away, the family standard of living will drop drastically. And the amount that you would have in savings more than likely would not be enough to maintain the family's current standard of living for a prolonged period of time. This is where life insurance comes into play. Now, there are different ways that can calculate how much life insurance a person actually needs, but in this scenario here, let's just look at covering the basic needs, right? We'll cover the needs for the mortgage, because if it is you have a $1.5 million mortgage, the average monthly installments is within the range of about $7,500, $8,000 a month, all right? Now, if it is both salaries come together in this scenario here, let's look at the salaries are on average $15,000 a month, and the other person's salary is $18,000 a month, right? Let's say for argument's sake, the woman's salary is $18,000 a month and the man making $15,000, all right? Now, if the husband passes away, his portion that he would have been contributing to the family standard of living, especially the mortgage, the wife will not be able to pick it up on her own. So if he passes away and they both have life insurance, the coverage from the life insurance proceeds, or the proceeds in the life insurance policy, will be able to pay off the mortgage and still have enough to maintain the family standard of living for a particular period of time. Now, usually, one of the strategies that we would implement as financial advisors would be the replacement, one of the replacement cost method valuation. So that will be replacing the income of the person, of the deceased, for a particular period of time. Let's say that income is, the replacement is for, if the youngest child is, let's say, 3 years old, right? You would want to replace the income for the next 10 to 20 years. So in that period, the wife or the surviving spouse will not have to struggle. You could look at also covering the mortgage. So in a lot of cases, when it is going for a mortgage, some banks will offer you the option to have or suggest that you have a life insurance policy. Now, this is not necessarily for your benefit, this is for the bank's benefit, because if you pass away while paying a mortgage, the bank does not necessarily want to come back and repossess the property, put it back up on the market, resell it, do all these different things. They want you to maintain the asset, or they want to be able to receive the remainder of the balance of the money that you would have to be paying for them. So the life insurance proceeds in that case will be paying off the mortgage. So if it is, let's say, we're looking at a calculation of you're covering the mortgage, and then you want to replace the income for the person, those are the types of, those are the metrics that would guide the amount of coverage that you need. Now, it are different types of life insurance policies. There are term policies, whole life, universal life, endowments. And based on your income, based on your need, a skilled advisor would make a recommendation of a mixture between the few. And it's sometimes really based on what it is you want as well too, because some people believe that they don't want to, they want to be able to receive some sort of return from their life insurance policy, because the old adage is that life insurance is only for everybody else, not for me. This is a greed-based method of thinking, and nothing is wrong with that. But there's two ways that you can look at it. A greed-based perspective, where a person believes that the life insurance proceeds, they must benefit from it, or a need-based, where it is they don't really care and they want to make sure that their family is taken care of, right? Now, if this we're looking at a metric of 10 to 20 times the person's annual income, and also taking care of the major stuff like the mortgage, you would, and let's say the mortgage is, for simple maths, let's say 1.5 million, you would then now have to look at, if it is we're looking at a basic calculation here, right? That is, and the salary we're working with is $15,000 a month by 12. That's $180,000 for the year. And then you multiply that by, let's say, 20 times, because the youngest child, you want to make sure that the surviving spouse don't need to struggle for that period. That's 3.6 million in just replacement costs alone for the family to maintain their standard of living, plus another 1.5 to cover the mortgage. So in reality, that's 5.1 million they actually need in terms of life insurance coverage. It might sound like a big number, but the good thing about insurance policies is that not all policies carry the same type of monthly premium. So like a term policy would be very affordable. And in this case, we could do a very good mixture. So a big portion of it will go to the term coverage, so it will be cheap. And then the remainder, they could also have some sort of return as a result of it. Now, I'd like to break here for a second, and when we come back, we'll be talking about wills, trusts, as well as beneficiaries, and how these things tie into having life insurance coverage.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
This is Face of Sports WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of this game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next to Seth. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have two of the three species of anteaters right here.
Now, welcome back. And like I said, in this episode, we'll be talking about wills, trusts, and beneficiaries, as well as life insurance. Now, I am not a legal mind, and I will only speak on the areas that I know, right? So I would have brought on a guest with me, a legal mind, who would be joining me to help make this area of wills and trusts and making it understandable very easy. So today I'm joined by Ms. Shakila Daniel. Now, Ms. Daniel is the current Managing Director and Senior Partner at DL Daniel and Associates Limited. She received her formal education and certification from the University of the West Indies, both Open Campus and University of St. Augustine, right? Both in Commonwealth Law, Commonwealth Caribbean Law, and Legal Systems. She's a Senior Legal and Title Research Consultant for the Legal Department of the Office of the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. And she has well over a decade of experience in legal drafting and matters pertaining to several aspects of civil law, particularly conveyancing, property, and probate law. Now, Ms. Daniel is a member of the TTAL CPO and Property and Administrative Law Lecturer for the Esquire Professional Institute. That's a mouthful. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, with this big long intro, I'm sure that
marketing team
that I'm in good hands in terms of explaining to the viewers the areas of wills, trust, and how this all ties into life insurance, right? So I'll start with what is a will. Now, the definition that I have here, tell me if I'm wrong, right? A will is a legal instrument whereby a person makes disposition of his or her property to take legal effect after death.
Nice, yes. That is close enough.
Right.
In law, we like to deal with accuracy.
Right.
And so I get the sense, though, that your show is trying to assist persons to break down legal stuff in a way that is understandable and not necessarily convoluted. And so I wouldn't use all the jargon, right?
Yes, this show is about is stripping away the jargon. Yes, they could give me a bit of the jargon of it, but we want it to be understandable and easily picked up by anybody.
No problem. So I would say, in order to easily define what a will is, just in the name, it's whatever you would like to have happen. What is your will? What is your intent? So a will is a written document, a legally enforceable document, the only legally enforceable document after death that gives the express will of the person who would have created it, who is termed the testator. Is the only legal instrument that is valid after death and could survive death. Every other written, executed legal document dies when you die, for example, powers of attorney. Yeah. So if you do not have a will, you have not spoken on what you want your will to be or what you intend to happen to every asset that forms part of what we call in law your estate, right? A will has certain features that makes it valid, and if it is not there, it's not considered to be valid. One of that is that it must, well, in Trinidad and Tobago, so in our jurisdiction, a will must be written. The testator must be of age of majority, meaning over 18. The will must have 2 witnesses who are not beneficiaries of the will. It should have an executor. It must be signed and it must be dated.
So what if when a person dies and they don't have a will, what happens to their assets, the bank accounts, all these different things, the credit union, who's still owing their money?
Wonderful question, and this is why I'm on this program today and why I am kind of known locally for doing a lot of these legal education outreach, because we have a problem, Darren. We have a problem locally where too much of our population, I don't have the exact statistics, but we all die intestate. Now, intestate means having died without leaving a written will.
Why is that?
It's a lot of socio-psychological issues, I believe. I think it's generally as well a lack of education as to understanding the real effects of it. I feel a lot of persons believe that, you know, my children, it's not as bad as it really is when I don't have one. I secondly believe that we have a lot of local superstition. I don't know about the other jurisdictions, but if I write a will, I will die, and then, you know, if I write one of the children, no one will want to kill me,
that does happen as well with life insurance as well too, because people believe that if it is to have a life insurance, the calling thing on the self. If that's critical illness insurance, the calling thing on the self.
Right. But dying intestate is one of the most legally irresponsible things that you can do for your entire family, as well as everything that you worked hard for, because you're leaving it in limbo. You're essentially, you're not saying anything at all, and you're being silent on how you would like your assets to be distributed. And more than that, who you would like to be responsible to represent your decision-making in death. So there are 2 aspects or powers of a will. There is its gifting power, where persons obsess on, where I leave for beneficiaries, but there's also the legal personal representative part, or who's your executress or executor, that if you die in a manner that entitled you for something, nobody can really get it or administer over it, because you have no one appointed by virtue of your intestacy.
So if it is, let's just say, right, for argument's sake, someone has a will,
right,
and they pass away, what's the period in terms of time before their beneficiaries would be able to have access to everything?
In actuality, immediately after, there's a clause in the will that says after all my just debts and funeral expenses has been paid, the executor or executress can immediately start to probate that will, right? Immediately. And once that probate process has been started by a competent attorney who is experienced in that area of law, so that the application does not have any sort of errors that will delay the process, then those beneficiaries within 9 months can get a grant of probate in order to access the assets.
What is probate?
Probate. Probate is the process of proving a will. So probate, another word you could use to probate is to prove. A will, because it speaks for a dead person, must be proven. Now, in the event that someone dies without a will and they've died intestate, you leave it for the state, essentially, to decide how your assets are to be distributed in accordance with several pieces of legislation, namely the Administration of Estates Act, the Succession Act, and other legislation having to do with estates, Wills and Probate Act, right? So especially the Succession Act and the Distribution of Estates Act, those two pieces of legislation dictate who can apply, who ought to benefit, and it does not take into consideration, I want the population to understand that, it does not take into consideration your social relationship with these persons. That is to say, if you have a legitimate biological child who legally has your name on their birth paper, they are going to have so much rights, beneficiary rights, whether or not they took care of you, whether or not they spoke to you, whether or not you met them.
Wow.
All right, so I want to see, so the legal relationship in law is looked at without social parameters. All right, is who is entitled to apply and benefit in accordance with legislation. No consideration for how close we were. No consideration as well for even, so you may have a very close boyfriend or girlfriend who contributed a lot to your life or your assets. You all were not common law, which is a different topic. And by virtue of that, I mean, once mommy, daddy never spoke to you in your life, this is a person who may be in their 20s or so. According, if you die without a will, mommy and daddy, brother, sister, I've seen an instant where a brother come in, never spoke to the sister before, driving BMW as we speak.
So how long that process usually is? Because you know a lot of people don't like to think about these things, but they don't realize the psychological and emotional trauma they're putting on the persons who surviving them. So if it is you don't have a will, how long does it usually take for a person to, let's say, have access or deal with these different things, especially as like children or people who depend on the person who would have been deceased?
Excellent question, dependent. So when someone does not have a will, you have to apply for a grant of letters of administration. This is not a letter, all right? I want to clarify that. Letters of administration is a grant that is given to someone who died intestate to the legal personal representative who is identified by virtue of the entitlement by the legislation we called. Now, letters of administration, the process of that is understandably longer than the process for probate because the registrar now has to look at this application sent in by this applicant and decide whether or not all that you said is true, whether it's reasonable in law to grant you this in this manner, and whether the beneficiaries you've listed here is legally and lawfully entitled to get it. So they have to take a longer time than a will where the dead person, the deceased person is speaking what they want their will to be. If I want to
What a longer time would look like? Some months, some years?
Some years. Wow. Definitely some years. Usually, and ordinarily too. Let's also be, I don't want to say defend the legal profession as to why this takes so long, but because members of the public are notoriously dying without wills, the probate department is overwhelmed with the amount of letters of administration applications that they have to go through and prove and investigate and have, the process. There are a lot of sometimes queries that happen, supplemental affidavits have to be filed. It's a process. Now, you see how many people die? Not just by murder, right? Every single day people are dying, applications are coming in. It makes the process longer. So it's supposed to be 9 months to 3 years if you have a good, competent attorney. Dare I say it, dear Daniel and Associates. That's our track record, right? Because of the experience. But in reality, I have seen beneficiaries waiting for 17 years.
No, you see, I understand this to the degree that I always recommend my clients to have a will. Right? Because if it is, as you rightfully said, if it is you don't have a will, as the state will appoint one to you.
Right, essentially, well, yeah.
Essentially, because your estate, everything will go to your estate.
Yes.
Now, with taking that into consideration, this is where I would say life insurance comes into play as well too. Because the entire process of having the life insurance coverage would help, let's say, replace the income that a person would have been providing to the family while it is they're going through all of the different legalities in terms of getting access and having all of these things put together. Now, we discussed that, right? Tell me a little bit about trust in Trinidad and Tobago, because everybody does always ask me, what is a trust? Why it is you don't have a trust in Trinidad? People just want to have a trust. Yeah. Let's break it down for the viewers at home in a very simple way.
Right. So firstly, disclaimer, I'm not a trust attorney at all. I don't like trust law. But I would have studied it, in the early parts of my studies, just because I have to, just pass over. So it is really me going back, right?
That's
now,
okay.
Trust, put simply, is another legal instrument that is used in estate planning. I did look up I saw a trust attorney, Mr. Dinoon. So if you guys want to find Mr. Dinoon and ask information, trust is not something that we do a lot in Trinidad and Tobago, and I'll explain why after. But by definition, a trust is also another legal instrument that could be used to deal with estate matters. You appoint a trustee, and you have your listed beneficiaries as well. The trustee has certain responsibilities and obligations as it relates to the trust in our jurisdiction, and this is where my property law, over the years I've seen so many trust vesting deeds. This is what is the registered instrument by which the trust is really set up to, it can be recognized and expressed and written, where the trustees are named and the beneficiaries there as well. Now, trust needs to have three elements. People like to ask about trust because they believe it will make them get away from the cost of probate, right? Will duties and legal fees. But there is still registration fees related to trust, because you have to register your trust vesting deed. Additionally, with trust, it needs to have three certainties, right? Certainty in language, meaning that it must be an express trust, must state what is the intention. Certainty in subject matter, what is the subject of the trust, what does the trust contain, and only these assets form part of the trust, which is an important thing. And then certainty in object, who are the objects or beneficiaries of the trust, and how are they to benefit from what is essentially subject of the trust.
So is it that I need to have millions of dollars and 10 boats and 3 houses and a house down the islands in order for me for it to make sense for me to have a trust?
No.
Or?
No. Anything at all, any asset. I've seen persons have a maxi taxi in trusts. Any asset that is of value, you can create a trust for, appoint a trustee and a beneficiary, and then outline in the trust deed the manner in which the trust is to be handled and how the beneficiaries to have access, when and how. Now, you could actually have a trust enshrined in a will as well.
Right.
Right? Where you put a asset or benefit for a beneficiary in trust to someone else as an express trust.
So
when they reach a certain age of majority, let's say.
So let's say, right, for example, could someone have a trust and have a life insurance being paid towards the trust, and the trust could indicate the terms of how this will be paid?
Wow, that's very, very innovative, and yes, very possible.
Because if it is you look at it from a particular perspective, the life insurance could be looked at as an asset, as an asset class.
Most certainly, yes,
right?
it is an
asset. So
asset.
it's an asset class, and if it is, let's just say you have a large life insurance policy, right? And you have children or people that you want to leave this to, you could now structure a trust in such a way where the trust would have the terms or the rules at which this would be paid out to the beneficiaries.
Yes. So the trust can be used to outline the manner in which the objects of the trust enjoy the subject of the trust, essentially.
So why is it this is not more commonplace?
Well, that's why we're here today. We're talking about the general public, the average person is taught to study well, work hard, and earn money. And with financial literacy and legal literacy,
it's very lacking.
Yes, it's not very common regionally, right? It's not just a local thing. We're hoping that this can improve as we go along. Financial planning is very important and responsible. And most times when persons lack legal planning, they lack financial planning as well. It's very important, I think, for new couples, persons who, these are conversations you should have while dating. These are conversations you should have while married. Right? These are conversations you should have when pregnant and having, you know, these are conversations that I remember. I don't like to give this example of an uncle that I have, so I wouldn't talk about, because I finally heard he sort out stuff, right, recently. But they have 8 children, and it didn't seem to be. I was getting a heart attack as to why, you know, we're in our 70s here, we're in our 70s, 80s, and we need to organize this. But what you made mention of is very possible. It also, if you have a trust vesting deed, it's faster to be able to have access to the assets than having to wait on probate. So I would recommend that you have the two. I want persons to understand that you don't have to have either or. I have a trust, so I don't need a will. That's a very irresponsible position to take, because the trust has to be very finite and very particular, right? Whereas life is not like that, and a will has provisions that covers that aspect of life. Meaning, so for instance, my mother would have died without knowing that the manner in which she died entitled her for compensation. And that compensation, where it went, it fell into her estate, right? Had she died intestate, no one would have been there to deal with that compensation. And that happens to a lot of persons. So that would not fall in the trust. Remember, the trust is certain. So there's certainty of what is in this trust. You can't say, well, I had this a very big life insurance policy, right? Let's say $2 billion, right? But after that, I started to acquire more assets. I started to develop property, and, you know, and then I died from a PTSD bus, or whatever. And so other assets were owed to me after I died.
So that's where the will come in.
Because even if you have a trust and then you accrue assets after, or you're entitled to things after you die, there's no residuary clause or provisions in trust for you, but there is in probate.
I think we may have to have a future conversation, because something came up to mind about buy-sell agreements as it relates to businesses, and how we could fund it, as well as using life insurance to help fund these different instruments. Now, this is where I would say having a skilled advisor would come into play, because in my profession, I always recommend my clients to have conversations with persons like attorneys, with attorneys, accountants, these different things, because there are different needs that the one particular professional may not be able to cover, right? And this is where these kind of shows come into play, because financial literacy is just one part of the overall conversation in terms of being able to properly prepare for these uncertainties and these events, which is guaranteed to happen. It's guaranteed. Two things in life are guaranteed: death and taxes. Right? So I hope that after this conversation, and I would hope that you will come on and again for future conversations.
I'll think about it.
Because I think that this is the start of a very strong change in perspective, a mindset shift, especially for people in our generation.
Yes.
Because I think that now information is so readily available that when it is we get old, we cannot have the excuse that we didn't know. We cannot have the excuse of ignorance. Because you see that now in a lot of the older generation now.
Right.
But I am making it my duty that we will not, and people from our generation will not die that way.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Daniel, I really do appreciate.
Democratizing information.
Correct.
Before you ended, I wanted to, you did mention about financial literacy and all these different things. I want to also bring up this last point about trust. Because you said that you encourage persons to engage with several types of professionals with setting up their asset management portfolio, essentially, right? One of the things, so when persons ask attorneys about trust, and you may find attorneys pushing you towards more probate, the purpose or the reason for that is that realistically in our culture and jurisdiction, if you go to any bank or any other financial institutions, they're going to put the benefits in the estate automatically, right? And bank clerks and others are trained to ask for letters of administration. They want the grant of probate, whether that be credit unions, etc. Additionally, as we're talking about insurance, read your insurance policies, and I want the advisors, and this is a little bit for you, to understand what products you're selling to your client and go through the policy with them to the extent of the beneficiary power. Because I realize I've seen that in some it varies in policies and in companies, the amount that the named beneficiary gets, and then the rest goes back into the estate.
Well, that is, you could, based on how the policy is structured, if it is you have more than one beneficiary, it will split 50-50. If it is you have two beneficiaries.
Right.
But if it's one beneficiary, the entire benefit will go to the beneficiary.
And none falling into the estate.
No, once a beneficiary.
Because that's probably your company.
Well, I'm familiar with a few of the different insurance companies in Trinidad.
And all the life insurance and that.
Life insurance. Life insurance is more or less the standard throughout the board, right? Okay. So once you have a named beneficiary, the check is paid out to that beneficiary. Person. Yeah. Okay. It doesn't go to estate or it doesn't go anywhere else. Now the problem is that people don't name a beneficiary, right? Or sometimes they may want to put a child as a beneficiary, which you really can't, you really shouldn't do. Right. Right? So all of these things is, go ahead.
And talk about that, tell them what happens if you name a child a beneficiary.
the problem is, right, when they name a child as a beneficiary, that child cannot access those funds until they reach 18, because a child legally can't sign for anything.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And it's not in the child's best interest.
Yes.
For you to do that as well, because let's be real, what would you give an 18-year-old $2 million?
Correct, yeah.
What that money going to done before the year end?
And this is why, again, entrusted, because it will essentially be stuck in the estate, right, until that child reaches age of majority. And this is why you should not die intestate and have a will still, even if you have a named beneficiary as a child, and appoint your executor as your trustee for that said child to kind of even control, because you could do that in a will as well, right? You can outline the power of the trustee there and how that named beneficiary, because at 18 you're really not still adults.
You're not.
You're mentally.
I think as though that a lot of people feel intimidated and overwhelmed by these sorts of conversations, and they are afraid because they don't know what they don't know. And then they're afraid to even start the conversation because they think this might cost a lot of money. They think they may not have enough assets, or they don't even know where to start as well too. Because a lot of the time, the start of the conversation does be financial literacy. And then from there, having that conversation, because I could talk about my experience. When I was an engineer, I never knew nothing about insurance to the extent to that I could say I could make an informed decision on it. No. I didn't know. And the information was so closely guarded. Even now, I know recently it had something where it is, as attorneys, you can't really post certain things online and can't have certain conversations online. And I know that recently that would have changed a little bit. But even with insurance and financial planning, a lot of agents do really post content to help inform and help people bridge that gap. So, go ahead.
Well, attorneys at law who are barristers and registered to practice and governed by that, they have certain rules against advertising and communication that has not changed. And that is the same with many other professions. You have dentists, doctors, not able to necessarily advertise and or even any manner in which the communicates with the public has to be very restricted. So hopefully that changes, and it has contributed significantly to the illiteracy of the population in certain aspects. However, that has been changing. We have been seeing, I saw the Eastern Association of attorneys, they have outreach and legal aid clinics. He within law school is also doing a lot of outreach, and there is a legal aid clinic. So there are legal aid clinics assisting persons that you could get help. And my firm, Dear Daniel and Associates, we do have radio programs, webinars, lots of outreach. I do stuff on social media that is not advertising, it's mainly education to assist people in understanding. And you could ask questions, you call us. I don't know if I am allowed to say numbers and all that. Yeah, okay. Because people have the questions, they want to know how to reach, and we actually give people an opportunity to get a free 10-minute discovery call. So we're not even charging. Because there's so much calls, right? Just call for free and tell us what's the issue. We'll see how we can help. 241-3772, 241-3772, or info@dldaniel.com, services@dldaniel.com. And please ask the questions. Let's have the conversation, because people go up, you know, they listen to the neighbor and the neighbor say.
If you know, that does grind my gears, because a person will listen to the neighbor who's a mechanic and tell them, and they tell them that, nah, this don't make sense to do it. It don't make no sense to come in and think about life insurance, or you need an annuity, you need a critical illness policy, or talk to a partner down the road, he can tell you about this legal issue. People, there are professionals for a reason. People study these things for years upon years and have many designations in terms of these areas of study to be able to properly and strategically inform you about what you should do. I'm an electrician by trade, right? But I will not pretend to know anything about law. Right? I'm a senior financial advisor by profession, and I have certain understandings in terms of wills, trust, estate planning, but I am not an estate planning attorney. So we will work together.
To go into those things.
You know, I will not go too deep into these things. I will always defer to the authority on that matter. So, any closing remarks?
Well, I think we covered a lot. I wanted to, my closing remarks is to congratulate you. I think that this is a very educational, edifying, and inspirational journey that you're on, and it's something very necessary. I support the initiative. I am very proud of you, and I think that this will be very successful. I hope that the population is able to appreciate, because I know that Mr. Donowa is also, is still on WESN, strictly legal, right? So WESN is having some wonderful things out there. I hope the population is using and appreciating these tools in order to have it for their benefit. Closing remarks in terms of intestacy, please stop it. Please, listen, this is my closing remark, really. You just got it, right? Dying without a will is the most legally, socially, and financially irresponsible thing that we can do. Dying without a will is the most legally, financially, and socially irresponsible thing that you can do. It frustrates your family members, it leaves things in uncertainty, and it just, you know, it's very, very inconvenient and irresponsible. You do not have to have any assets to leave a will. Let me say that again. You could write your will in such a way that speaks of future assets that you might get. Once you are over the age of 18, please write your will.
I agree with that.
Whether you're young and healthy, sick and going. I heard of a friend recently who was sick for years and she died intestate. And I was like, but you knew that your liver was failing. You know? So let's stop. I don't know what is the reason for it. You can change your will. I used to change my will every Monday morning at one point in time. Right? It is not finite. So, I mean, it's not, yeah, it's not locked that you can't change it, as you say. So that You can change your will, but please just have it there. Have an executor, have the conversations. Because we work so hard, but then we're so irresponsible. And then our generation, millennials, I don't know if you remember, right? We catching flights, and you know, every time you catch a flight, you're not guaranteed to land. Like you out there catching flights with no will. What is this?
You're catching flights with no life insurance.
Right? No life insurance, no will, but you're catching flights, and you're building crypto, and you're hustling and becoming an entrepreneur. No, let's be realistic. Yeah. You benefited from GATE. You have several degrees, right? You do all kind of things. You're qualified in all different areas. You started a business. You're doing a lot for yourself. You are earning, but you are irresponsible. You know, so it's part of being responsible. Even if you have a credit union or you have different savings, this legal aspect is a very important part. It's also an important part for business owners, for business continuity. What happens to your shares? When you are a director, you're not an owner, you're an employee of your company is a totally different legal entity.
We will definitely have a conversation about it. Definitely. There's a whole area study that we could definitely discuss and go on. And I will definitely have you back to have that conversation about business insurance, right? Because I think that's another area that people vastly underestimate and they neglect it in terms of estate planning, business insurance, and protection in that aspect. I would say my closing remarks would be in terms of financial planning, the base of all financial plans would be wills, life insurance, which is risk management. So you look at the risk management, have a life insurance, critical illness, let's say regular other insurance, things like car insurance, house insurance, those different things like that, as well as a will and a trust. And then from there, we could then build upon the levels of the pyramid going up in terms of really protecting yourself and your family, because as you rightfully have said, dying without a will and dying without life insurance, if you have a family, is financially irresponsible and is the worst thing that you could do to your family. If you actually care about your family, because some people don't really care about the family. But I would say that it's financially responsible for you to do so, and I would recommend the services of a professional to help guide you in these areas. Now, I would be able to help in those areas because I, as a senior financial advisor, work a lot with business owners, families, these different things, and also I partner with other legal professionals as well as accountants to really help create an overall package for you. Yes. So we thank you for joining us on this program here, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Right. And this has been Dollars and Cents, where it is we make your dollars make sense.
WESN.
Diwali Passport, brought to you by Chatak Food Products and Anand Brand Wax Deers.
When it comes to Pira and Laddu, I just use Chatak's Laddu and Pira Mithai Mix. It's a combination of traditional ingredients in one pack. I don't spend all that time preparing different ingredients like Ma. 3/4 of the work is done. So now I can make fresh, delicious Pira and Laddu in about 15 minutes with the convenience of Chatak's Laddu and Pira Mithai Mix. Now Ma's Kitchen is a Chatak